I remember the day you started to lose faith. Or maybe it wasn't losing faith. Maybe it was the first moment you realized the world was a little more complicated than the stories you were told. This letter is for the little girl who took everything too literally, who absorbed every word as truth and every mood in the room as her responsibility. If she's still listening somewhere inside me, I hope she knows she didn't do anything wrong. One day, she'll grow out of that tendency. And one day, she'll learn that literal isn't the only way to understand a story. I remember the scissors. It was a rainy, gray afternoon in the old house in Oregon, the kind of day where the clouds pressed low and everything felt heavier than it was. You had misplaced a pair of scissors Mom wanted. Maybe you weren't supposed to touch them. Maybe you just forgot where you put them. It doesn't really matter now. What mattered then was that Mom was upset, and you felt the full weight of her frustration, as if it were proof that you'd failed. Your little logic was trying its best that day. You had just heard the story in Matthew. The birds of the air, the lilies of the field, the promise that all things will be added unto you. You believed it completely, with the kind of wholehearted trust only a child can manage. If God saw the birds and the lilies, surely he could see the scissors. Surely he cared enough to help you find them. Surely he wouldn't want your mother to be upset. So you prayed. You prayed the only way you knew how. Directly, earnestly, with your whole heart leaning toward hope. And then, nothing happened. No scissors, no resolution, no magical softening of the moment, just silence, and your first tiny crack of doubt. Or perhaps not doubt, maybe just the gentle, painful beginning of understanding that stories meant to comfort don't always translate neatly into everyday life. What you couldn't have understood then, what you can see so clearly now, is that Mom wasn't nearly as angry as she felt toward you. You experienced every emotion at full volume. You took everything personally, everything literally, everything as a measure of whether you were good or not. The world was louder then, harsher, closer. And maybe it was never really about the scissors at all. Maybe you weren't praying for a lost object. Maybe you were praying for steadiness, for safety, for the feeling of being held in a moment when everything felt fragile. Maybe you thought finding the scissors was the only path back to peace. But here's the truth you didn't know then. You were never meant to carry that kind of responsibility on such small shoulders. You were a lonely little girl longing for warmth, not a problem solver tasked with keeping everyone calm. If I could go back to you in that moment, I wouldn't help you find the scissors. I would sit on the floor beside you. I would tell you that nothing terrible is happening, that grown-ups feel things that aren't your fault, that your prayer wasn't silly, it was creative, hopeful, resourceful. It showed how deeply you believed in goodness and connection. And I would tell you something else. I can hold uncertainty now. You don't have to fix everything anymore. You don't have to earn calm or carry the emotional weather in the room. You get to grow up and become someone who sees stories differently, not literally, but tenderly, with room for nuance and mystery and humanity, with room for yourself, signed by the me who can look back with care and understanding. Pete's. I'd love to hear the memories you can now look back on and understand differently. And if you know someone who needs that same care and understanding, share this with them.